What's up, friends? The Nerdy Filmmaker here, and today we're going to be covering one of the most daunting tasks for any filmmaker, and that's making your budget. So for the sake of this video, we're going to be using the Telefilm Micro-Budget template. Okay, this is a budget template you can find online. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to download it. It is a Canadian style budget. I don't quite know what the difference would be between this and, let's say, an American budget or any other place around the world. Roles are basically the same across the world, so it should work if you just want to start with this, and then maybe you can adapt it to another budget format in the future. Also, for the sake of this budget, we have to make some assumptions about what the film that we're budgeting is. For the sake of this video, we're going to assume that we are doing a budget for a film that takes place over 2 different locations. It has 3 actors with speaking roles and 5 extras. Okay, so 5 background performers. There are going to be some roles I'm not going to include in this, but I'll briefly cover them. This is going to be a longer video. It might be a bit dry because budgeting is dry, but I'll try to make some jokes as we go along and keep it semi-entertaining. So let's jump right into it. So over here we have the cover page, all right? Anytime you see something highlighted in yellow in this document, that's gonna be stuff that we edit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill up some of this stuff. Today the date is March 7th, 2023. The title of this project is going to be Project Dope. Name, solid. And the production company is going to be Bean-Duck Productions. Beatrice will be our producer. I'm going to be the director. And I am, guess what, also the writer. The format is going to be digital because we are not shooting on film. That's not how you spell digital. The length, let's say it's 12 pages long or 14 pages long. Let's say it's 14 pages long. Therefore, the length will be 14 minutes, I assume. Shooting dates, TBA, and then this is to be the budget to be approved. Now, I normally wouldn't be the one creating the budget as the director or the writer, but I'm the YouTuber, so I'm doing it. All right, so we're gonna scroll down. You see all of these fields are gonna be filled in later, and you'll see all the way at the bottom here, notes and assumptions. We'll come back to that. I think I basically have one assumption to make in this. But let's go to the main meat and potatoes. All right, so you see that these things have been auto-filled at the top, and we're gonna jump right into it. Story rights, as if you wanna be acquiring the rights, you're optioning the rights from someone. We don't have to do that in this case because I've written it for Bean-Duck, so I'm just basically getting paid as a script writer. Over here we have screenwriters and script editors, producers and directors. All of these things are called above the line. This is section A. And above the line are development costs, and often are the people that are also getting a portion of revenue. I'm not gonna fill this in just yet. I'll fill in our names. I'm gonna put my name under screenwriter. And the reason I'm not gonna fill these in just yet is because these pay grades or whatever are generally based on a percentage of the budget. And we can do that in this case, but I often use this as a guideline for what we should be paid, because more often than not, especially in indie film and low budget film, the percentage of the budget is actually not very much. And so you can kind of go through everything else and then base your pay off of what everyone else is getting. That's how I like to do it. Okay, let's scroll on down. So now we're getting into section B, and this is our labor costs. And we're starting off with cast, labor and rights. Okay, now here, what I often like to do is to put each actor as a separate role, a separate line item. And you can put the character name, you can put the actor name once you know who's cast as it. Right now, I'm just gonna put what they are. So lead and a principal and a principal. Okay, and then we're also gonna have some extras, or you could call them background performers. All right, now let's take a look at what this structure is over here. We have number of units, unit, rate, amount, and then the total. Don't touch that, that's automated. Let's first take a look at a unit. And a unit is the measurement by which we're saying how they're being paid. Are they being paid daily, weekly, monthly? Are they just being given a flat amount, all right? Or an allowance of a certain amount, okay? I know that these actors are unionized ACTRA members. That's the Canadian Actors Guild. and I know that I'm going to be paying them per day. Okay, so I'm going to switch all of this to day. And number is the number of those things, of people or of items, if you have multiple cameras or whatever. But then the number of units is how many days in this case. So I know that the lead is going to be there for all 4 days. All right, so this is a 4-day shoot. I know they're going to be there for 4 days. The principals, one of them only needed for 2 days. One of them is only needed for 1 day, and there's one of each. The background performers, I said there's going to be 5 background performers, and let's say there's only 1 day where it's actual kind of like cafe scene. That's the only day I need them, okay? Now, rates. You can find unionized, standardized rates online. More often than not, at least in Canada, they are readily available. You can go onto the ACTRA site, find their agreements, or call them and get the amounts. You can also go on to the crew unions and find those standard rates. The way I like to start, because this is a first rough budget, okay? This is just, throwing it out there. I kind of determine the scale of my project to start. So I know that, let's say if this is really, really low budget, I know I'm paying between $150 and $250 a day, depending on the role of actor and crew and all that. I'm gonna aim a little bit higher. I'm gonna say my range in my mind is gonna be between $250 and $400. Okay, so the highest creative is gonna get $400 a day, and then maybe some of the kind of lower down the totem pole roles are gonna be $250, okay? So I know I wanna pay my lead $300 a day, all right? I'm gonna give all the actors the same amount. Now the background performers are, aspiring actors or friends or whatever. I'm basically giving them an honorarium of $150 a day. Now, one thing this is not taken into consideration, I put 4 and 2 and 1, but what about rehearsal days? I know that I'm gonna need 1 rehearsal day per person, maybe 2 for the lead. So I'm gonna add that into number of units. So it's gonna be 6 for the lead, and then I really only need 1 day, let's say, for each of the principals. So I'm gonna add 1 to those. So there you go. All right, background performers don't need rehearsal days. Now, other things that I put in here sometimes are, so stunts, you'll see there's stunts right there, the stunt coordinator in there, an intimacy coordinator in there, but I'm not gonna need those for this shoot. What I am gonna need are ACTRA fees. So I know that being, knowing about ACTRA, they need a certain percentage of the total amount here. Now, I don't remember what the ACTRA rate is, but basically what you could do is set up a formula to get the total of all of these things and then multiply it by the percentage that also needs to go to the union, and that will automatically change over here, okay? And basically what you do is you just click on that section right over here and you say equals, and then you can do all of this, right? And then multiplied by what the percentage is. So now we're gonna get to production office labor. These are your production managers, your assistant directors, your PAs, anyone who would be in the production office, okay? So I'm gonna start off with my production manager. I only have a first assistant director. We don't have any fancier second or third assistant directors. We also don't have a location manager. We are gonna have an accountant, but I'll put continuity supervisor first, and then we'll say accountant, okay? Production accountant. I don't know, I like putting that. This is where you can start to negotiate. Are you gonna be paying your crew flat rates or day rates? I'm gonna go with day again. Remember, again, we have 4 days of shooting. They're gonna need some pre-production time. Maybe you've negotiated with them how much pre-production you are going to be paying them for. And that can be based on what you think your budget level is gonna end up being, what you can be able to afford. And let's say we're gonna give the production manager 4 days of pre-production, right? So 4 plus 4 days on set is 8. Assistant director, maybe give them 3 days of pre-production, so they'd be 7. Continuity supervisor, we'll just have them on set. And the production accountant, for all of production, really only needs 1 day to just write the checks. Okay, it's a quick shoot. So production manager, I'm gonna put them at 300. Okay, so 300, continuity might get 250. Sorry, continuity. People always get the short end of the stick. You might disagree with the amounts that I'm putting here. I have not reached the union rates are yet, so I might go into there and realize that continuity is actually paid just as much as an assistant director. I don't actually know, but you can change it, right? This is just the initial numbers, and then just to give you a rough idea. The production accountant, I know that they charge about $400 a day, but they're only for 1 day. So there we go, okay? Finally, we need some PAs. So I'm just gonna put PAs, and we know we want 2 PAs, and they're going to be doing their thing on the day of the shoot, but maybe they'll each have 1 day of pre-production to help out doing pickups and that kind of stuff. So I'll put them at 5 total, and then they'll be getting $250 as well. Moving on, art department. We have production designer, construction, set dress, props, special effects, animals. We are not having any special effects, and we are not having any animals on this shoot. You hear me? So we're gonna start off with the production designer. I'm just gonna plop in all the names here real fast. We're gonna say we have a set dresser. We're gonna have a props person. All right, production designer. You might also be called an art director. Usually if you have a big budget, you have both production designer that's like kind of designing everything, and then you have an art director that's underneath them. The production designer is the head of the art department. I've asked the person, I only have one person doing that role, and they prefer the role production designer. So yeah, sure, whatever. Fine with me. The production designer or art director is probably the person, other than the director, who's doing the most pre-production in the project. A lot of times I find it hard to estimate how much pre-production days they're gonna get paid. So I often then just give them a flat rate and come back and revisit it to see if that makes sense with everyone else, right? Right now I see the production manager is getting $2,400, the assistant director is getting $2,100. I'm gonna put them at $3,000. I'm just gonna start there, and then as I finish, I realize someone's getting paid more than them. I probably would adjust that. The set dresser is gonna be there on set, so they're just gonna get $250 for the day for 4 days. I'm keeping this production designer at 1 because it is 1 flat payment. And then the props is gonna need, it's not a very complicated project. Let's say they really only need 1 day of going through the script and talking with the production designer and figuring out what all the props they're gonna need are and where they're gonna source them and all that. And then they need a day of going up and doing the pickups, or 2 days. So I'm gonna give them 3 days of pre-production, and they're gonna be getting $300. We're not doing any set construction, so we're gonna leave that. Moving on to hair and makeup and wardrobe. So I'm gonna start off with costume designer. That's the right word, designer. They as well don't have too much work to do. I'm gonna give them 3 days of pre-production as well, on top of the 4 days of the shoot, and I'm going to give them also $300. Then we have, for me, I'm gonna use the costume designer is gonna be on set doing wardrobe, so that's the same person. Makeup and hair, so I'm gonna put makeup and hair. They need 1 day of pre-production just to do some makeup tests on the actors or something like that. So I'm gonna give them 1 day of pre-production, and they're gonna be getting $300. Look at us cruising, friends, we're cruising. Technical department, labor. So this is gonna be your camera department people, the lighting, the sound, all of that. We've got the director of photography. That person needs an assistant camera op. All right, or assistant camera, sorry, it's not a camera operator, assistant camera. The assistant camera is a person that's gonna be dealing with the lens changes, the tripod, any kind of helping out with any of the things surrounding the camera, but then is also gonna be dealing with the focus. They're gonna be next to the lens, manually dealing with the focus with a follow focus. We don't have a fancy wireless follow focus like those high-end peeps. Then we're gonna need a gaffer and a grip. What's a gaffer, what's a grip? A gaffer is the person that deals with all electric. All right, so that's basically lighting. They also know the wattage of all the plugs in the locations. They should have that, and they're kind of the safety of everything that's electrical. The grip is the person that deals with anything that is holding equipment, right? So the C-stands that the lights might go on, anything that needs to be put up, rigged up anywhere. Sometimes, and I think most of the times, the grip is also dealing with the dolly, so anything that the camera goes on that is structural. The grip takes care of. We might also have space for what's called a swing. Maybe one of the days is really, really difficult, right? And so we know we're gonna need a swing one day, and that swing is basically bouncing back and forth between the gaffer and the grip, helping wherever they can. So we have the swing there. Now you might also have a best boy or any of the other number of roles that are in the electrical department and camera department, okay? So you can have a second assistant camera, you can have a camera operator, a steady cam operator. We don't got that. We don't got that budget. We're gonna move on to the sound recorders, okay? Recordist, yeah. And then maybe one of the days, that really complicated day, we know that that person has requested a boom op. I've asked the sound person, can you do the sound mix and the recording yourself? They said, I would rather not. Okay, look, what if we just get you a boom op for that one day, all right? Ideally, you have a boom op. So the director of photography is gonna do 3 days of pre-production. The director of photography is gonna be doing pre-production, working with the director to work on the shot list, prepare any of the kind of aesthetics that they have in their mind, and are probably gonna go do a half day of camera tests somewhere. Okay, pick up the camera, go to the location of the rental, test out the camera with the different lenses and the filters, make sure that everything is there. I'm gonna give them $400 a day. Assistant camera will probably only need 1 day of pre-production, that day of camera tests. They'll go with the director of photography to test and they'll get $300. The gaffer might also need only 1 day to pick up gear, make sure everything's working, and maybe have a phone call with the director of photography or the director to go through everything, okay? Ideally, the gaffer does have more time than that, but the grip, I don't know if grips often get a day of pre-production with the gaffer or with the director of photography, but I'm gonna give them one. And the swing, we said we only need that person for 1 day, and that 1 day he'll also get, or they'll also get $300. The sound recordist might only need 1 day of pre-production to test mics on the costumes to make sure that there's no interference or like rubbing, the textures, maybe there's like some chainmail. It's like, that's some chainmail. That person's gonna be like, oh, well, we can't lav this because it sounds like a clinky piece of garbage. So anything they can do to prepare, right? Now, the sound recordist sometimes might bundle their gear into their labor. That's actually a way for you to save some money because then you can get labor costs back. And if they say, instead of charging $300 for my labor and like $200 for equipment or something like that, they'll say, I'll charge $500. And then therefore that all falls under labor. And maybe you can get tax credits on labor, something like that. All right, you didn't hear it here. You didn't hear it here. Okay, boom operator, we said there's 1 day, maybe he can make, he's like, no, I need him for a 2nd day. Fine, whatever. And then the poor boom op is gonna get $250. I'm sorry, boom op. It's a thankless job, but you will get lats like a monster. Shoulders like a monster. Production office. So over here we have office supplies, computers, security. As indie, we don't often usually have, at least at our budget level, we don't have a production office, but we also have an office. So we just use that as a production office. So if you're getting grant money or something like that for this, this is a good way to help subsidize the space that you're using. If you're not renting a spot, then you can subsidize the spot you already have. So, you know, I might look at Bean Duck's rent and say, we're gonna be using this space for a month. And for that month, about 1/3 of the time or 1/4 of the time is gonna be dedicated towards working on this project. And therefore, I can claim that amount on this. So I'm gonna say office, or you can say office rental or production office or whatever. It's gonna be a flat rate, or you can even say it's a monthly rate, but it's only 1 month. And we'll say it's $750, okay? Office supplies, that could be things like printing paper and ink and all that for all the scripts that you have to do. Let's put a flat rate, and let's say it's, I don't know, $150. Computers and security, you can maybe put some of your production office insurance or something in there. I don't know, I'm not gonna do that. Studio and location. So this is where you might put some scouting costs in there, things that are not directly attached to the pay of a location scout, which we do not have because no one in Montreal has location scouts. Boy, do we want them. If you want to get a lucrative job, ongoing freelance work, become a location scout in Montreal. We're not going to put a location scout, but we are going to put location rental. Now, I know that we're going to need this spot for 4 days, although we're doing 2 locations, right? So the way I'm actually going to do it instead, if I knew where we were shooting and I want to break up each location into its own line item, then that's something that I can come back and revisit and change later. But for now, I know I'm going to allow for a maximum of $1,500 in rent. Nope, that's not enough. Let's say it's $2,000. Even that's not a lot at all, but we're going to start with that and see what happens. Catering and craft, meals, craft, support rooms, first aid. Now, what's the difference between catering and craft? Catering are the meals that you eat, it's lunch. But craft are the snacks that you have ongoing. So if someone's walking around handing out granola bars or bananas or a salad or something like that, that's craft. I often end up finding companies that will cater both. They'll provide all the meals in the morning along with craft. And so I'm gonna put them as one line and I'm not gonna touch it. And I'll explain why. I'll come back to it later because I need to know how many people are gonna be on set. So I'm gonna touch that later. Oof, Jesus. We have a first aid kit already, so we're not gonna charge for that. Though if you need to top it off every couple of productions, you can put a line item in there. Transportation expenses. This is tricky, okay, because I don't know much about transportation expenses, but we're gonna take a guess here, okay? So we're gonna need 2 trucks. All right, so we need equipment truck rental. And I don't know how much that is, but we're gonna get a big one. It's gonna be $750 for the whole thing. And then we're gonna have an art truck rental. All right, and that is gonna be a little bit smaller because there's not as much art. We're using a lot of the stuff that's within the space. We're not bringing any big furniture pieces. It's really for costumes and props and maybe a couple little pieces here and there. Again, I don't know what the price of truck rentals are. I think I saw these numbers somewhere once, vaguely, right? Gas, now this can be not only the gas of those trucks, but you're reimbursing your crew for the gas that they use to get to set. So we're going to allow for, let's say it's 5 cars, a fill up for each one. Or is it $50 a fill up or something these days? Whatever, let's just put 300. Parking. Isn't this fun? Isn't this a lot of fun? Just putting in random numbers. I don't know, 200 for parking. Who knows? Moving on, art department expenses. So this is the actual materials that the art department is gonna be purchasing or renting or whatever, and the money that goes towards that. So let's start off with costumes, right? And then we're gonna have set dressing, and then we're gonna have props. Just so you know, the difference between set dress and props is if your actor interacts with the item. If it's a mug that they pick up and drink from, it is a prop. If it is a mug in the background, it is set dressing. So if they interact with it, it is considered a prop. These are simple costumes. I'm going to allow for, what did I say, 3 actors, 5 extras, 2 locations. The costume designer is confident they're gonna go to Winners. They have some stuff. We might source a couple of things from actors. They don't need more than $750. Set dress, that might be a bit more. Depending, this can be enormous. So if you're doing something like a period piece or you're completely redesigning a room, that could be a lot. Let's just go $1,500. I always give too little to the art department and they hate me. So in this fictional budget, even $1,500 is peanuts. But they've seen the room and they're confident they can do it with that. And you know what? I'm going to allow the same amount. There's barely any props. I'm giving $500 for props. Sick. We don't have construction, we don't have special effects, and we do not have animals. Hair and makeup. Hair and makeup are gonna charge for their makeup kit, just like a camera person might charge for their camera or a sound person for the gear. Let's go ahead and say, oh, you see, wardrobe is here. Why do I keep the costumes down here? I'm gonna move that down here. Good Lord, Julian. Fixed, you saw nothing. Okay, great. So set dress and props are up here, costumes are down here, and we're gonna have makeup and hair expenses. They've quoted me. They're like, yeah, no way. Basically, just pay me a daily rate of an extra, maybe 75. Technical department, camera, electric grip, sound equipment, and expendables. So this gets complicated in terms of, I usually add a lot of things, and I think it's because I know cameras very well and gear very well that I can list them as individual items, whereas art or things like that are harder for me to list as individual items. I don't know them as well. But we're gonna go ahead and say the camera. We're gonna start with the camera. Now, you can write camera and then put the model. I'm not gonna shoot on a Red. I'm not gonna shoot on an Arri Alexa. We're not there yet. This is not that film. We're gonna shoot on a Sony FX3 or something like that. I don't remember if it's the FX3 or the FX6, I don't know. But that is a daily rate, and that's gonna be $500. Then I'm gonna put lenses, all right? And then we're gonna put lighting equipment, and then we're gonna put camera equipment. That is everything that's surrounding the camera, so monitors, follow focus, lighting equipment, sound equipment. I'm sure I'm missing something here because I feel like there would be another line, but I'm sure I'll figure it out in a second. Now, all of these are gonna be rented per day, okay? I don't know what the rates of all these are. We're going to make some guesses. Maybe the camera's the only thing I've gotten a quote on. The lenses are gonna be, let's say I want 24 millimeter, 35 millimeter, the standards, right? 5 millimeter. They're $75 each lens, so that's $300 a day. Camera equipment, I'm gonna put, I don't know, 500. Lighting is 500. Sound, I've made a deal with them for only 200. Now, how many days? At least here in Montreal and Quebec, camera rental places and lighting equipment places close on the weekend, right? So that means that if you rent on a Friday, you get it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, return on Monday morning, and that's all one day. So if this is a 4-day shoot and we're shooting from Thursday to Sunday, if you can put it like that, then you're actually only paying for Thursday and Friday, and you get all the other days, you return it on Monday. Fabulous. So we're putting 2 for all of these. The sound equipment might be different because maybe it's the recordist's equipment and maybe that person wants the full 4 days, but to be discussed with them. Equipment, done. All right. Things you might also put in there are expendables, might be things like batteries and tape and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Oh, we're missing grip equipment. That's what we're missing. We're missing the grip equipment. So we're going to insert a row. Grip equipment. Silly me. Same deal. This one's only going to be 300. Raw stock and transfers. We're not shooting on stock. So this is something you can do at any point, is you can be hiding entire sections. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hide this entire section. Right click. I know I'm not gonna be shooting on film at any time, at least not on an indie budget. So I'm just gonna hide that whole row. If ever you wanna bring it back up, just highlight over there and unhide rows and they pop back up, okay? Don't accidentally hide anything that you need or that already has an amount in it, because then you're hiding a secret dollar value somewhere and you will never be able to find it. Post-production. Post-production supervisor is the person that kind of designs the workflow of your post-production. So they're the person that is talking with the editor, with the sound mixer, with VFX, with the colorist, all of that, and they've kind of developed a plan, maybe even like a multi-page PDF to hand out to everyone to make sure everyone's on the same page about formats and delivery and who's doing what. As the editor of all my own projects, I just do my own post-production supervising. I don't charge for it. I don't label myself as it because I wouldn't advertise myself as that. So I'm just going to be a picture editor. I'm going to be working, I don't know, 3 weeks on this. And I'm going to put my daily rate in my mind in line with what everyone else's is. So it's going to be $1,500 a week. Then the sound editor is going to be working 2 weeks on this project. They charge a bit more than me or whatever, but maybe I've negotiated them down to that amount because they also know they're going to get money on rental of their studio. The last thing I would put here is maybe is color, right? So the person that's doing the color correction. Color correction, they are so busy here in Montreal. Again, I can only base this off what I've used so far, and I've used color correction services here in the city, and they're incredible, the ones I've worked with, but they are so busy that they can charge a premium. So for like a 12-minute video or something like that, they might charge $4,000. I can't afford that in this budget. I can't justify $4,000 for like 2 days of work. So I'm gonna negotiate them down to $2,500, hopefully, all right? Now, what you can do is say, well, I could afford $3,000, but we're gonna ask them and say, we can only do it for $250. See if you can bring the price down. Picture post expenses, sound post expenses. These are the expenses associated with the studios of the people that are editing your film, right? So again, as a camera operator or a director of photography might charge for their camera and a sound person for their microphones. An editor might charge for their rig. So they've built up a crazy computer and a bunch of monitors in a dark space and a whatever that's like with a couch and coffee. An espresso while you're editing and I can watch? That's great. Well, they might charge a certain amount for their studio, right? So there you can say like picture editor studio expenses or something like that. I don't know what you would list that as. These might not be the official names, so I'm sorry. Again, 3 weeks, and they're adding in an extra $500 a week, so $100 a day or whatever it is, right? Then we'll do the same thing for sound post expenses. So there we're gonna do the sound studio expenses, whatever. It's gonna be 2 weeks there. And again, I've negotiated them down. They're very expensive with their stuff to $150 a day or $100 a day. Let's keep it the same here. Here we have ADR, Foley, and sound mix. I put sound editor, but maybe I should have put sound editor mixer because in my mind, that's the same person. But sometimes sound mixers have sound editors that they work with as a team, right? But for me, it's the same person. They might also have a Foley artist. Now they put Foley here, but I feel like that's post-production labor. That should be going into this section. Whether that's normal or not, I don't know. But we're gonna do 2 days of Foley. I don't know what Foley artists get paid, so we'll put them at $300. If you need to rent the space, a separate space for ADR, maybe your person who's doing your sound mix doesn't have an ADR space, right? ADR is if the actors need to re-record any of their lines in studio on a microphone, then you might need to rent out an ADR studio. And so that would go in there. My sound person has an ADR space, so I've just included that into their amounts. I spoke to them about it and they're good. Finishing and delivery expenses, credits, versioning, protection copies. Oh my God. For me, the only ones that I've gone ahead and used so far, I haven't paid for credits for someone making my credits. I've always made my own credits. Versioning is if you have to make different versions of the export or maybe even different versions of the film itself before you export it for different distributors or for different platforms. Maybe you need to add in credits in one thing and remove it in another because you put it up on Amazon Prime and Prime needs their logo on there. Or, I don't know, just speaking out of my butt here. But basically, the only thing I'm gonna put here is storage. Now, storage, these are hard drives. Okay, so I'm gonna put hard drives. Now, hard drives, I usually put them higher up actually in one of the spots over here for expenses, but it goes fine there as well. It goes fine. And I know I'm gonna need 3 hard drives. Now you'll see, look, all of a sudden there's hour and minute and foot. I guess that has to do with film, a foot of film. But I know that I'm gonna have a flat rate. It's gonna be 3 hard drives and it's going to be $150 each. Deliverables, that's where all that stuff goes in there. That is so dependent on what you plan on doing your film. I'm not gonna go into that. Music and labor expenses. Let's put a composer in here. I've spoken to my composer. They said, yep, I'm gonna be able to do the music for the whole film. I'll do a first pass in 2 days. I'll send you some rough versions in 1 day. I need another 2 days to come up with some solid beats, and then maybe another day based off of your feedback. So they're gonna do 4 days, and they're charging, I don't know, $350. I just came up with a random number. But they might just be okay with a flat rate. You might just be like, can you do all the music for $1,500 or for $1,250 or whatever. Stock music and music rights. So if you have a stock music purchase or a subscription to a stock music site, you can reimburse yourself there. Music rights. If you want the latest Kendrick Lamar, that'll be expensive. We're not doing that. Now that's the end of section C. Now what I forgot to say was the difference between section B and C. And C is post-production and B up here is production, okay? So now we're entering section D, which is other costs usually associated with publicity and kind of these other random additional expenses that you don't really fit anywhere else. Unit publicity, so publicist, social media, production stills, photography, EPK. What I'm gonna put here is behind the scenes photo/video. So I'm gonna have a person on set every one of the production days, and they are going to be taking behind the scenes footage for me, video. Are they editing them? Are they editing the photos and delivering it to you? Are they like a selection? Are they editing the film, behind the scenes featurette for you? All of those things are they all wildly affect the price of this line, right? So for me, I'm just asking, hey, can you come do some photos and videos and just give me all the stuff at the end? They're cool with that because they would love $300 a day or whatever. And again, that's probably pretty cheap, but that line exists. I am not going to have a publicist. I believe we got a publicist for one of our films once, and it was like $2,000 or $3,000 for the month. And that basically just got us some magazine interviews and stuff like that. I don't remember the exact amount. Social media as well can be super important, especially if you're getting ready to go into festivals. If you're trying to go into festivals, then having buzz around your film is imperative. EPK is an electronic press kit. So if you're putting together a press kit to send out to festivals or whatever, you're gonna need some graphic design to put that all together. Digital marketing expert? Nope. But that's, would be extremely helpful. It all depends on what the goal of your film is. Then finally, general and indirect expenses. Insurance, right? So maybe you can put some of your insurance, your yearly insurance of my equipment is insured yearly. I don't remember how much it is. Let's say it's $2,000, right? Let's open up a calculator. Let's do $2,000 divided by 12. So that's 167. So I'm gonna do 1 month of that. So that's gonna be $167. Put some money back into the company. Legal, right? That's gonna be the person that drafts up the contracts between you and your crew, but also maybe, so optioning agreement, but also to help you with distribution. If a distributor offers you a contract, have your legal go through that, right? I'm gonna give a flat rate of $2,500. Then post-accounting, so same deal as above. This is really just, my accountant needs 1 day to go through all of the stuff and pay everyone. So $400 for the day. Bank charges, interim financing, ISAN registration, corporate overhead. We don't need all that right now. You're good. I'm good. I don't need that. So finally, we have contingency. Contingency is money if you need it. You should always have contingency so it doesn't come out of your own pocket. Contingency has saved us many times. So a standard safe rate is 10%. And that amount is 10% of usually your B and C, I believe. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna change this and we're gonna say equals, and I'm just gonna click on that cell. That's the amount, and then 10% of that amount, we have a contingency of $5,900. So if something breaks, like a truck, once we backed up a truck and the rear view mirror or the side mirror broke, once we damaged a piece of musical equipment that we then had to pay to buy, because that was the contractual agreement, it was weird. Lots of potential ways to need money. So there we go. Moving down, then we have promotional costs, distribution costs. Things that I'd put here are like festival submissions. And I know I'm going to try to apply to 20 festivals. It's going to be a flat rate, 20 festivals, and each festival's roughly, $50. So there you go. That's not very much. So let's actually pump this up to $60, and let's try for 50 festivals. Oh! Right, then you might put a per diem, festival travel, right? So like plane tickets and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you can find grants or whatever for distribution costs, specifically for this, for festivals and all that kind of stuff. So watch out for those if you're in Canada, because I know grants aren't really as much of a thing in the US. So there we go. Let's scroll on up. There's just a couple more things we have to add in here now that we're near the end. This is a very long video, and I'm sorry. We have to figure out catering. So let's count the number of people that are on set, right? So we have the director, the producer, the lead, the two principals, And then I have 5 background performers, but only for 1 day. So I'm just gonna count them as like one person, right? For cost-wise, so 6. Then we have the production manager, so 7, assistant director, continuity supervisor, production accountant is not on set, and then we have 2 PAs, so that's 11. Production designer, set dresser, props, costume designer, makeup, director of photography, assistant camera, gaffer, grip, swing, sound recordist, boom operator, behind the scenes photography. So I believe that's 24. So we're gonna put 24 people. It's going to be a 4-day shoot. And for each person, it's roughly $22. That's for their meals and craft. I'm just picking a number, 22. That's pretty good. And that's gonna come out to $2,112 in catering. Finally, let's go back up to the hardest ones, which are the director, producer, and screenwriter. A lot of times a production company is the one that gets the producer pay, and then it kind of gets split up. But this, I'm going to say that first off, as indie filmmakers, we all know, unfortunately, the first people to take pay cuts are ourselves. What we can start off by doing is checking out what the percentage is. So let's say as a director, I would normally be used to getting 2.5% of the budget. So I'm gonna say equals B and C. There it is. And then I'm gonna go back up to the formula and write times 0.025. That's $1,500. That's peanuts. And that's why I say I sometimes use it just as a gauge to see. And then afterwards I go, nope. And then I switch it to flat and I say, ain't no way anyone's getting paid more than me if I can help it. So I'm gonna get $4,000. You know, the next person being the production designer at 3 and the director of photography at 28. The producer, let's say he's gonna get the same amount as me. And you know what, we're very democratic. If the screenwriter was a different person, I would give them an amount. But in this case, it's me, so I'm just gonna give it for free. The other thing to remember is, again, all those people usually get a percentage of revenue should there be revenue from a sale. So you're gonna want to keep that in mind and have that agreed upon way before you even start pre-production for the project. That should be settled. So let's take a look at our top sheet. Now that we are coming to an end, this film has a production cost of labor and expenses of $46,000. It has post-production costs of $15,000, which is very little. And then you have some additional stuff here. So the total budget with the contingency and the promotion costs, $82,000. All right, the thing that I was gonna put down here was I was going to say shot over, so we're gonna say it's a 4-day shoot equals 2-day rental, Thursday to Sunday. And maybe they know what that means, you know? You can explain it a little bit better. There you go, $82,000. Now, that might be a lot, right? Maybe you're like, I didn't have anywhere close to that. So there are things you can do to lower this budget. Okay, so here are some tips about budget making to kind of wrap this up and ways to lower your budget. So number 1, you should be always saving this budget. You should be pressing Control S or Apple S every second, but you should also be making copies of it. That once I've done this, I'm gonna save this as a draft, and the next time I come back in to edit this with changes, I'm gonna make a new draft, okay? And either draft it by saying, you know, version 1, version 2, or with a date. Always keep multiple versions of the budget and make sure that people always know which one is the most up-to-date budget. How can we lower this amount if this is way outside your budget range? The things that affect your budget the most are the number of people involved and the number of locations, and therefore the number of days. You know, locations is one of the things that causes days to increase. So if you can reduce the number of locations, that's great. If you can't, schedule it in a way that can try to reduce the number of days. If I can look at this and say, you know what, while we're wrapping up at one spot, we can be setting up at another or something like that, or we have an extra 2 hours here, we can start set up at the end of one day for the next day and then actually saves us a full day or something like that, then all of those 4s for labor costs get reduced to 3. The other thing is, well, like I said, I budgeted this at between $250 to $400, and most of these people are getting paid $300 to $400. If you can't do that, there's no shame in reducing the rates. Everyone is starting somewhere, and you're always able to find people who are just starting off in their careers who can work for reduced rates, or amazing friends who are just really passionate about the project, right? Maybe you can be getting some of the equipment for free. That kind of goes with the previous note, because I have friends. I have a director of photography friend who has a Red camera, and in the past, if the project is cool enough and he's really digging it, he's told me that he will bring the camera for free, and that is a very expensive camera. So that is sweet as pie, and I will definitely take him up on that ASAP. That would knock a huge amount off the budget. Well, huge. I have right now 2 days at $500 for the rentals. That would knock $1,000 off the budget. But yes, maybe you need to drop the rates from $250 to $400 down to $150 to $250, and that will save a lot of money. Maybe someone can make the food themselves on production. We've had on The Forest, one of the executive producers was the one that made the food for everyone, and that dramatically cut costs. They were able to make it for $5 a head as opposed to $22. Like, it was nuts. And every time you make that change, like I said, save a new draft, come back to your budget, adjust it. And you should have, this budget is a living document that should be changing through every step of the filmmaking process. Even while the shoot is happening, once the shoot is finished and you're in post-production, all of these estimates, or maybe these estimates have been changed to union rates, but all of those like allowances where I've allowed $3,000 for color correction or whatever, but I got it for $2,000, then you can reduce it and you'll start to see how much budget you have left over. There you go. That is a long video. I hope that you stuck with me. I hope that this was informative. There is a link in the description as a reminder to this template. So download it and give it a shot. If you have any questions about this, leave it in the comments. I'm exhausted. I'm really tired. Thank you very much, my friends. Let me know if there's any other videos related to this kind of pre-production that would be interesting to you. And I'm gonna go not talk for like a solid 15 minutes. All right? See you all later.